we are doing a recap of your algebra 1 day. So we're talking about lines and functions. Now this corresponds to the first two sections of your textbook. Since we're not checking out textbooks today, I will give you a hard copy of the pages. So I'll just give you the worksheet. Okay, so section 1.1 of our textbook is lines in a plane. And it starts out with slope. Now there's 4 types of slope. The first one we always talk about is this one. Ooh, and that's a crooked line. But it's close enough. What type of slope is it from left to right if it's increasing? Positive. Positive. It's somewhat linear, right? Let me see if I can do a better job with that.
It's okay.
If you guys cut me a break, I'll cut you a break when I'm breaking those quizzes, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, after positive slope, what's the next type of slope we always talk about? Negative slope. So from left to right, it's decreasing. And then we have our 2 special types of slope. What is this one called? Undefined. And then the final one would be a horizontal line. And what's the slope of all horizontal lines?
0.
0. So we're going to keep it pretty simple today. It's an algebra 1 review. Starting out with slope. And after we talk about slope, what's the next thing we always talk about? The intercept, and that gets us to slope intercepts form and graphing lines. So let's get to some graphing. Now, problem number 1, slope formula. It says to find the slope of these 2 points. How do you find slope when you're given 2 points? What is the slope formula?
Y2
minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, something I like to do, I'm a labeler. I like to be organized. So I always label my first point x1, y1. So that's my first x and my first y. My second ordered pair is always x2, y2. That's my second x and my second y. So remember with ordered pairs, it's x, y, alphabetical order. So now that I have everything labeled, everything will go nicely into that formula. So what value do I put for y2? 3/12. Minus, what do I put for y1? Negative 2/3. This pen is not wanting to work today. I think it's still on vacation. Now, in the denominator, I need to have x2 minus x1. So what do I put for x2? 1/8. Minus, what do I put for x1? 1/4. Now, in order to subtract fractions, what do I need to have? Common denominator. So for the numerator, what would be the common denominator? 12. So the 3/12 is fine. I'm going to just continue my work over here. So this would be 3/12. And when I subtract the negative, it becomes positive. And instead of 2/3, I need the common denominator of 12. So that would be 3 times 4 to get me 12. So 2 times 4 would give me 8. I'll go ahead and add those, and that would be 11, 12. Now in the denominator, what's the common denominator between 8 and 4? 8. So 1/8 is good to go. But instead of 1/4, I would put 2/8. And 1/8 minus 2/8 would be negative 1/8. Should I leave an answer like that? No, do not leave it as a complex fraction. What was the middle school teacher teaching? Heat change split? Did they say that? Yeah. So 11 out of 12 times 8 give us 11 times 8 is 88, 12 times -1, -12. Does that simplify further?
Yes.
Yes, it does. So both of those could be divided by what? 4. So 88 divided by 4 would be 22, and -12 divided by 4, -3. Now, technically, I have the negative in the denominator. You could have put the negative with the numerator, or you could put the negative out in front of the fraction. So it's either one of those three. It doesn't matter where the negative is, you just have to have it in one of those three places. So with the numerator, with the denominator, out front. Okay, next problem. Let me scroll back. Now they want to find the parallel slope. What do you know about the slopes of parallel lines from your geometry day? Yeah, parallel lines have the same slope. So if this slope was it 22 over -3? I'm going to use M with a little subscript of a parallel line, and this represents the parallel slope. So the parallel slope would have to be the same slope, which would be what? 22 over -3. So parallel lines have the same slope. So if I had 22 over -3 for the first answer, this would have to be the same answer, 22 over -3. Then question 3 wants us to find the perpendicular slope. What do I know about slopes of perpendicular lines? Opposite, reciprocal. So I need the opposite reciprocal of 22 over -3. So again, I'm going to use a similar notation. Again, I'm using M for slope. I'm going to throw a random squiggle in there. And perpendicular is that upside down capital T. Looks like perpendicular lines right there. Looks like a 90-degree angle. So 2 90-degree angles. Now I need the opposite. So if this is a negative, the opposite of a negative would be a positive. And reciprocal means you invert the fraction. So 22 over 3 becomes positive 3 over 22. Positive 3 over 22. Next part. Moving right along. Now, recapping some formulas. What is the formula for slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. And m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. Point slope form. What's the formula for point slope form? Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So it's called point slope form because if you're given a point and the slope, you use the point slope form. If you're given the slope and the y-intercept, use slope-intercept form. And the last one is standard form. Do you remember the formula for that one? ax plus by equals c. Now, just find an equation of a line that passes through the point and has the given slope. So here's a point, here's a slope. I have to decide which one of those three equations to use. Well, if you're given a point and a slope, which one should you use? Point slope form. And the formula for point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now again, I am an organizer. I like to label. So I'm going to label my points x1, y1. Now you don't have to. I just like to do that because sometimes students will say, where did that number come from? Well, if you have it labeled, you know exactly where the 3 came from, or negative 3 came from. Okay, now fill in those 3 values. So for x1, put a -3. For y1, put a 6. For m, put a -2. So bring down the y, bring down the minus, and what do I put for y1? 6. What do I put for m? -2, then my parentheses, then my x, and my minus, and what do I put for x1? Yeah, if I put a -3 right here, it becomes +3. Now, what did the instructions say? It says find and Equation, technically, is that an equation?
No. Well.
Is it an equation? Yeah, it's an equation, it has an equal sign, right? So technically, that's right, but most of the time, do we stop here? No, most of the time we get it in slope intercept form. So let's practice that. So let's distribute that -2. Because math is fun. Bring down to y minus 6. Distribute your -2 with -2 times x. -2x. And with -2 times 3. -6. And what would my final step be? Add 6 to both sides. So y equals -2x, and -6 positive 6 is 0. So the equation is just y equals -2x. Now, those of you going on to AP courses, on the AP exam, they don't like you boxing in answers. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to box it in. But that would be my final answer. Because with the AP exam, they grade the work. If you just box in this, they're not going to grade your work. You're not going to get credit. So I'm going to try to get you out of the habit of boxing in answers. Okay, now determine the slope and y-intercept of the linear equation. So this one is in standard form. So if I want to figure out the slope and y-intercept, what would I have to do with this equation?
Put y on one side.
Yeah, if I want the slope and the intercept, I need to get it in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So that's my goal. I want it to be in slope-intercept form. So I have to get the y by itself. So what would be the first step to get the y by itself? Yeah, subtract the 3x to both sides. So that gives us 4y equals -3x plus 1. What's the next step? Divide everything by 4. So y equals -3/4 x plus 1/4. Did I answer the question?
No.
No. What are they asking for?
The slope and
The
y.
slope. So now I can answer that question. What is the slope? -3/4. Should I put x with that? No. Slope is just a value. It's rise over run. So don't put x because it's not part of the rise and it's not part of the run. So the slope is -3/4. And the y-intercept, what's the y-intercept? 1/4. -3/4 for the slope, 1/4 for the y-intercept. Now determine the slope-intercept form of the line that contains a given point. So my goal is to get this in y equals mx plus b form. Well, if I want it in slope-intercept form, what's the first thing I need to know?
Find the slope.
Find the slope. So anytime you have 2 points, do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, I am an organizer, so I'm going to label. So the first point is x1, y1. That's my first x, my first y. Second point is x2, y2. That's my second x, that's my second y. Now what we need to do is take those 4 values and substitute them in. And what do we put for y2?
Oh, negative.
-4 minus, what do I put for y1? 3. What do I put for x2? -4 minus, what do I put for x1? 4. For the numerator was -4 minus 3. -7 was -4 minus 4. -8, and a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive 7/8. All that work, am I finished? No, because what are they asking for? Slope-intercept form. So what do I do next? Yes, now I have the slope, and I was given points. Now I can do the point-slope form. So point-slope form, the formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Drop down to y. What do I put for y1? y1? 3. What do I put for m? 7/8, that's what we just solved for. Put your parentheses and then your x minus x1, what do I put? 4. Now, can I leave my answer like this? Is that slope-intercept form? No, it's not. So distribute that 7/8. So this would be y minus 3 equals 7/8 x. And 7/8 times -4 would be 7/8 y. -7/2. And what's next? Add 3 to both sides. So this would be y equals 7/8x. And -7/2 plus 3, I really need to change this to be a common denominator. So instead of 3, that's equal to 6/2. So 6/2 minus 7/2 would give me -1/2. So y equals 7/8x minus 1/2. I was about to box that in, but the AP exam, they don't want you boxing in answers. So I'm just going to leave it right there. It's a bad habit to break, isn't it? Actually, it's a good habit to break. I don't want to say boxing in answers. It's a bad habit, it's a good habit. Okay, the next one. Okay, let the fun continue. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, I'm going to label everything. Here's x1, y1, x2, y2. Oh man, what's the problem? This would be, what's y2? 12 minus y1. 6, x2 is 3 minus 3. So what's 12 minus 6? 12 minus 6 is not under 5. Yeah, 12 minus 6 is 6. And 3 minus 3 is 0. So what's the slope here? Undefined. But I still have to come up with an equation. So if it's undefined, that means it's a vertical line that's going through what axis? Going through the x-axis at
3.
Yeah, where are these two x values? 3. So there's my equation, x equals 3. I can't give it in slope-intercept form. It's just x equals 3. Now let me pause it for a second. There we go. Next question. Find a line that's parallel and perpendicular to the given line and through the given point. Now this, I don't like the wording of this because it sounds like we're trying to just write one equation. And can I have one line that's both parallel and perpendicular to a point? No, it's going to be one or the other. They're mutually exclusive. So what we're going to do is we are going to do two separate equations. So we're going to start with a parallel line. So let me label. We're doing parallel first. Oh, they gave me a point, but did they give me a slope? So what am I going to have to do first over here? Yeah, so what do I have to do with that equation? Get it in slope-intercept form. So I need to solve for y. Okay, so first step would be subtract 3x to both sides. So that gives me negative 2y equals negative 3x plus 6. Divide everything by negative 2. And we get y equals, this simplifies to positive 3/2x minus 3. Now we're ready to come up with a parallel line. Let me do that over here. So now I know the slope. What's the slope of that line? 3/2. So now I have the slope, and I have a point. So what equation could I use? Point slope form. So point slope form, let me write the equation or formula this way. Y minus y1 equals m. But if I want the parallel one, I need to use the parallel slope. So I'm going to modify that formula. X minus x1. So if we're looking for the parallel equation, we need to make sure we're using the parallel slope. Fill in what you know. So this would be y minus, and what would y1 be? I didn't label anything, did I? So this is x1, y1 is -1, so when I put a negative behind the minus, it changes to positive. Now, parallel slope, what did we say earlier about slopes to parallel lines? They're the same. So if I got 3/2 before, then the parallel slope would also be 3/2. And we'll have x minus, and what do I put for x1? 2/5. Simplifying, distribute that 3/2. This will give us y plus 1 equals, what's 3/2 times x? 3/2 x. And 3/2 times -2/5. What happens with these two? They would cancel, so this would just be negative 3/5. Subtract 1 to both sides. And instead of 1, I'm going to make it 5 out of 5. So I have a common denominator. So this would be y equals 3/2 x. And what's negative 3/5 minus 5/5? Negative 8/5. Oh, again, I was trying to box in my answer. Don't do that on the exam. But am I finished? All of that work, and we're still not finished because they asked for the equation for the parallel line. What else did they ask us for? Perpendicular. So I want you to go ahead and do that equation for the perpendicular line. So make sure you use the perpendicular slope. Okay, so basically it's going to stay the same for the most part because we're still subtracting the -1, so that's still y plus 1. But for the perpendicular slope, it's not 3/2, I need the opposite reciprocal, which would be negative 2/3. And distribute that negative 2/3, so this would be y plus 1 equals negative 2/3 times x is negative 2/3 x. And negative 2/3 times negative 2/5 would be positive 4/15. Subtract 1 to both sides, and so that I have a common denominator, I'm going to subtract 15 over 15. So this would be y equals negative 2. Negative 2/3 x. And 4/15 minus 15/15. Negative 11/15. Again, I was about to box in that answer. Don't do that to the AP exam. Okay, next part. Okay, definition time. Now, that was all for section 1.1 of your textbook. Moving on to section 1.2, we're starting off with the definition for a function. And let me get out my resource here so that I give you the textbook definition. So the textbook definition for a function is a relation between a relation between a set of inputs and outputs where there is one and only one input for every output. Or another way you could say that is that the x's do not repeat. So if x repeats, it's not a function. So every x can have one and only one y. So x cannot repeat with another y. So one partner and one partner only. Okay, now moving on to some function notation. Here we're given the equation f of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 1. And for question number 9, they wanted to find f of 2. Well, normally this is f of x. So what they're telling us is in the equation, replace all of the x's with what number? 2. So for f of 2, instead of the x, replace it with a 2, so that would be 2 squared plus 4 times 2 plus 1. Simplify that. What's 2 squared? 4, and 4 times 2. So 4 plus 8 is?
12.
And 12 plus 1?
13.
13. So f of 2 is equal to 13. Next one, number 10, we need to find f of m. Well, that is normally f of x. So instead of the x, I substitute in what for x? M. So for f of m, wherever you see x, replace it with m. So this would be m squared plus 4m plus 1. Can I simplify that at all? No. That's it. Number 11, now we need to find f of what? X plus 2. So wherever I see x, I replace it with what? X plus 2. So for f of x plus 2, that's going to be x plus 2 squared plus 4 times x plus 2 plus 1. Can that simplify? You bet it does. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is square the binomial. So if you remember your shortcut from Algebra 2, and actually Algebra 1 creates this as well. So if you have a binomial squared, you take the first term and square it, so this would be a squared. And you keep the same sign, so this would stay a positive. And you multiply these, and what do you get? What's a times b? AB, and then you double it, so that would be 2AB. Plus, this last term needs to be squared, and when I do that, that gives me b squared. So that's that formula. Now, let's go ahead and apply that formula. So the first thing I have to do is take the first term and square it. If I take x and square it, I get x squared. To get this middle one, you multiply them and double it. If I multiply x and 2, I get 2x, double it, that gives me 4x. And the last thing is square the last term, so 2 squared is 4. Now we're ready to distribute that 4. So that would give us what? 4x plus 8 plus 1. Combine like terms, make sure it's in standard form, and for polynomials, start with the highest degree, so the x squared would go first. Combine your x's, 4x plus 4x is 8x, and 4 plus 8 is And 12 plus 1 is
13.
13. So make sure you simplify it completely. So x squared plus 8x plus 13. Okay, now a piecewise function. We'll be doing these briefly, but not very long for PRECAL 318. Number 12, we need to find f of 2. So for this problem, my x is equal to 2. Now this is called a piecewise function. So it depends on what my domain value is to which piece of the function I need to use. So my x value is 2. Well, looking at this first domain, what does it say about x? I use that function if the x value is greater than or equal to 4. Well, is 2 greater than or equal to 4? No, so we're not doing the square root function. But is 2 less than 4? Yes, so we need to be using the bottom function. So this would be negative 2 instead of x. What do I substitute for x? 2. And then plus 7. And what would that answer be? 3. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. Then number 13, we need to find f of 4. So which function would I use, the top one or the bottom one? The top one is, you can use it if it's equal to 4. So using the top one, we'll take the square root. Instead of x, what do I put? So this would be 4 minus 4. And what's 4 minus 4? 0. Square root of 0 is 0. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I kind of wrote over that. There's supposed to be a minus 1 over here. So this would be 0 minus 1, which is negative 1. Sorry about that. Make sure you use the entire function, not the part of it. Okay, now we need to find the domain of the following function. What does domain mean? The x value. So I'm going to use D for domain. So I need to list out all of the x values. Now when we list out the domain, it's typically from least to greatest. So my x values, all of these are ordered pairs. So the x values are just the first numbers. We have a negative 3, a negative 1, a 0, a 2, a 4. All of those are the domain values. Now they're already listed least to greatest, so just copy them down. We have negative 3, separate each one with a comma. So negative 3, negative 1, 0, 2, and 4. Now they didn't ask me for the range, but if they asked me for the range, that would be the y value. It would be the second number in the ordered pair. Now number 15. What type of equation is this? Quadratic. How do I know this is quadratic? X squared. So the best way to know what the domain would be to just sketch a graph, because we're going to do this without a calculator. So if the a value is negative, what does that tell me about the graph? Does it open up or down? It opens downward. So there's a rough sketch of what it would look like. It's a parabola that points downward. Now if I'm looking for the domain, what does domain mean? All of the x's, well, the x values keep going left, and they keep going right, so what's the domain here? All real numbers. There's several ways to write it. You can use that bolded R. You can write out all real numbers. Or if you're using integral notation, what would it be in integral notation? Oh, you are wanting
I don't even remember what that is.
negative infinity?
Oh, there we
Positive
go.
infinity?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways you can write it. Now, me, I prefer this one. It's shorter. Now, why did I use the parentheses on negative infinity and positive infinity? It never touches infinity. The little Buzz Lightyear tried to lead us astray. He said to infinity and beyond. But can you reach infinity? No. So if you can't reach infinity, can you go beyond infinity? No. Buzz Lightyear. Okay, next one. 16 and 17. What types of functions are these? The parent would be y equals 1 over x, which is rational. Remember the parent function? Let me just sketch the parent function. The parent function looks something like this. It has a vertical asymptote at the x-axis, or not at the x-axis, at the y-axis. It has a horizontal asymptote through the x-axis. Now you have to remember a little bit of your transformations. What would the plus 5 with the x graph do? Goes to the left. So if this moves to the left, what actually would move? That vertical asymptote needs to move to the left 5 units. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there would be my vertical asymptote. Horizontal asymptote, did it move up or down? No. The K value is 0. Oops, I did not hit that point, but it's close enough. So our domain, technically it keeps going left, it keeps going right, so it's almost all real numbers. It's all real numbers except x cannot equal what number? Negative 5. Now, really, did I have to sketch that graph? No, because I knew that the denominator can never equal, this can never equal 0. If I subtract 5, what do I get? Negative 5. Or you can sketch it out. Go ahead and answer question 17. Would be all real numbers except x cannot equal what? 6. And this graph, what does the minus 6 do to the graph? Move to the right 6. Now again, you don't have to sketch all of this. I'm just re-emphasizing some of your algebra skills. There we go. So it's all real numbers except we have that vertical asymptote that's positive. Oh, and we have finally reached the end. So your homework is from the textbook. Those are all the problems you need to do. Now it's copied on your note handout, so you don't have to copy that down or anything. So you do need to do all your work on notebook paper.